All right, Cece, I'm so happy to have you on the space of my podcast. I'm glad we finally made it happen. So, welcome. I find your story incredibly inspirational for people who really want to pursue their passion, but perhaps don't have the confidence or the self belief in doing so. And you've really gone out there and put yourself out there in your intention. And I would love to start by talking about your spiritual awakening journey. Sort of how it came about, where were you when it happened, was it intentional, and really where it led you today?
Yeah, I love that you start with the spiritual awakening aspect of things because that's really like the core of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then it's like the core that leads me onto this path that I'm still exploring right now. Right. So I've always kind of been spiritual, like sensitive since I was a kid. So, but then like the journey hasn't really kicked in or started until I would say when I was 22, and then it was like 2018 when I met an alchemist actually. So during that time, I went to a town in Ohio. It's called Ohio. It's in California, and then I was just there for a retreat, and then I met this alchemist, and she was like, we passed each other by, and then also she was like looking at me. I booked a session with her later on as well. Like she do some spiritual session in the Ohio Valley Inn, and then she just looked at me. She was like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not from this earth. And then there's more thing you need to remember. And it's kind of like really shocking to me because as a kid, I've always been spiritual. Before I was 6, 7, I used to see kind of like ghosts, right? But then like when you're like getting older, like when you're into the teenager years, you feel like, oh, maybe it was just, me as a kid, daydreaming. Probably these are not true, right? And then, but when I was like 15 or 16 years old, I met another spiritual teacher, and then he was like very specific about, I need to start on the spiritual journey. That's like my mission. That's my path. So I did like a spiritual practice with him for about a year and a half. And during that year and a half, I accumulated a lot of the energy to a point I can, just meditate and then have like out of body experiences.
Wow.
But then I was really young. Like I felt super alone and lonely, with my, other friends, in the same kind of age group because nobody understand what I'm talking about. I'm kind of like really weird. And then there's like more things starts to happen. When you become very sensitive to the energy. I think during that time I don't really know how to protect myself as well. So like I start getting, kind of attacks or weird message, from the spiritual realm, and it got me really scared. And then I was like, no, this is not the life I want. I wanted to have a boyfriend. I wanted to be normal. I want to fit in. I want to be the cool kid. Like I don't want to be this weird kid talking about weird shit. It's like,
Yeah.
and then so that's why I stopped all my spiritual practice. And then because of my spiritual practice, I can't really digest meat during that time. Every time I'm eating meat, I would throw up. So later from there, after I stopped my spiritual practice, I started forcing myself kind of to eat meat all over again. And then found myself a boyfriend, of course. And then just like kind of like trying to go back to the normal life, we'll say. But then right now, think about it. It's just really kind of like a matrixy life. You think it's normal, but then it's really just nothing really normal about it. And then I didn't know. So like I just trying to, like I say, just try to fit in, and then so I don't feel so alone. But then I started having this like year long of kind of depression, anxiety that kicks in within me, and I have to a point I have to start taking medicines, right, and then to just get by with life. And then I kind of like numbing myself, like, and get by with life. I did a lot of different things during college. That's actually when I first started, you know, exploring into my music career. In college, um, it was like a bunch of my friends, right? But then like after that, you still kind of feel this emptiness, right? Like it just feels like there's something you need to do, but you're not doing, or there's something that's not right. But I can never pin my finger on top of it, like what exactly is that? So it's not until like 2018 when I first met the alchemist, after I met with the alchemist, I started having like the wildest dreams, basically. I start dreaming about the same mountain every night, and I starting seeing like same number, repeating number everywhere. So it's like either 144 or 1144. So to a point, I have to start searching up what does that mean, right? And then when I was researching, like what came up is that 144 represent the 144,000 soul that came down to Earth, during the end of the time and helping Earth with the transition, from the existing dimension to a higher dimension, basically. And then like it's kind of strange to me, and because the story is in the Bible. And then, but for me, my family growing up is always the Buddhist. So like anything regards the Western religion, Christianity, Bible, like it's not something I've looked into before or even learned about before. It's kind of strange to me. But then when I read about these things, it starts feeling really resonate to a point, I will just cry because out of no reason. I don't even know why. I'm like tearing up.
Yeah.
And then when I research those things, I start learning more about, the New Age spirituality aspect of things, including ascended masters like Kara Komarni, Saint Germain. Saint Germain is the keeper of the violet flame. And then when I look up Saint Germain, and it's just like, accidentally I found the mountain in my dream, because that the mountain is called Mountain Shasta. And then Mountain Shasta is known to have a lot of Saint Germain's presence. Mm-hmm. And then it's also known to be as a portal for Earth, for the interstellar civilizations or interdimensional beings to come down to Earth through that portal. Mm-hmm. And it's also known as the root chakra for Earth. But I didn't know any of those. It's just when I look up Saint Germain and look up the relevancy with Saint Germain, I saw Mountain Shasta. I was like, oh my God, damn, that's the mountain in my dreams. And by then, I knew I have to go to Mountain Shasta. I knew like the mission for me, the next step is, is there waiting for me. Because after I met with the alchemist, like I start realizing, I'm a multidimensional being. I'm, I have a bigger mission on this Earth, and I need to help. Earth is going through a massive transition from 3-dimensional reality to 5-dimensional reality. And during this transition, I need to be assisting during this transition for somehow, but I wasn't clear how, and then I know like my next steps is in Mountain Shasta, but I didn't go there until actually the end of 2020. It was like a lot of fear, a lot of like comfort zone need to be breaking. And then, like, it just, I think there's a lot of fear that stops me to pursue that. And then my depression actually become worse during those years because, like, it's just like, I feel like right now, like stuff like depression or anxiety, it's just a way of your soul or your body is nudging you that, you're not exactly on the right path. You're not doing something that's aligned with your heart and soul. And then it reminds you to be having the courage to actually step into who you truly are. But yeah, it took some time. So that's kind of like my whole spiritual journey in the beginning. And then, well, I can continue a little bit more about it. Like, it's a very long story, like how I got where I am. During 2018, actually, it was the same year I discovered blockchain. So I was working in a music management company. And then learning a lot about, the back end of entertainment business. I was like, oh my God, this is so antiquated. Like, we have so much more advanced technologies, and then it can make things so much efficient. We're wasting so much time doing all these like paperwork and still doing handshake deals. I'm like there must be a better way, right? And then during that time, when I was just start thinking about how can I contributing to the, to this transition of the Earth from 3-dimensional to 5-dimensional reality, I stumbled upon a book regards blockchain when I was in the airport. I usually pick up a book in the airport so I can read it on the plane. And that time I just randomly picked up a book, and then it has like information about blockchain in there. When I read more into it, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly the vision that I see when I first, experiencing the awakening, because what I see is this like huge grid, right? Like all of us is kind of like a one dot on this huge grid. We are never separated. All of our energetically, we always continuously like connecting and interchanging with the whole grid. So like there's no way that someone is flourishing and someone is suffering. Like in the bigger realm, like we're all either, like flourishing together or suffering together. So that's like the vision I sell. And then blockchain is exactly about this, how to manifest it into the, reality. Kind of how can we connect everyone, not just through, information, because internet help us connect through, help the information to flow like freely in the globe, right? Because right now, then, everywhere in the world, you can get access to the exact same information. It was unbelievable, before the internet. And then, but with blockchain, one step further is we can connect the value system, not just the information, but also the value, like through the globe. And only from there, we can truly eliminating a lot of the, unproductive kind of reinventing the wheel, all these type of like efficiency problems, and then really connecting all the collective intelligence, collective wisdom together to creating something that we can never imagine creating by just one or two, by a small group of people. So
I would say an incredible journey. I mean, honestly, I don't think I actually had someone in my circle live out that journey so young, because it's the accelerated speed at which you've gone from this awakening to actually, a true vision for what happens next is astounding. So yeah, no, I loved hearing about that. Can I just ask, so is this experience responsible for you creating CC? You've posted about, sort of shedding maybe a layer of self to really truly step into that destiny. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. This definitely shaped me creating CC, because CC is the part of me that's always been there, but I've been kind of pushed her down and ignored her. And then, kind of like trying to be separated from her, because that's not what is acceptable, at least in my culture norms, right? Yeah. Like, and she is the part of me that, have all the kind of like negative, emotions, or even the how to say, I wouldn't call it darker, but it's just more aggressive part, that wasn't really allowed, as where I came from, like I came from China. So like we always expecting girls to be more kind of, more like a girl, and then also all those negative emotions is not really allowed or accepted or encouraged, right? So it ended up also the creativity part of me. So I always want to be a creative, but then my family just don't think creator is a sustainable career. They think it's a struggling career, and then they don't want me to pursue that. So I have to kind of push it down to be able to adopt with the growing up environment. And then after the spiritual awakening, I think the first thing I did is to start recognizing, going back and recognizing her. In the spiritual world, we call this like kind of the shadow work, right? Mm-hmm. Like you need to kind of starting to look at your shadow self and start integrating it into you. So then you become a whole person. You're no longer half of a person. Yeah. You become complete. You become whole by recognizing the part of you that's been, pushed down by you, that's been ignored by you. Mm-hmm. So that's like a whole journey of starting discovering the part of me that's inside of me. And during that time, I, really discovered CC, and also creating her to become the, kind of pop star, or like the singer, the performer that I always wanted to be, but wasn't there to be. It's actually a relief for me as well, because for me, it gives me a buffer time. It gives me a space that to allow myself to be truly me, but without how to say this, without kind of abandon everything I've been built for the year, with the family, with the surrounding, with the social. It's kind of, she is my metaverse alter ego, right? So like she has the unlimited potential in the metaverse, and I can still be Cynthia. I can still have this the business life. I can still have the everything that's been built, that's fitted into this environment and ground. But she is there, so she helps me to express that part. And then I felt creating her during this process made me realizing that, like how beautiful it is to be able to become an unlimited version of yourself in the, we call it metaverse, but what I see is actually the fifth dimension of our collective consciousness is merging into right now. Yeah.
Beautiful. And would you say that your symptoms of depression and anxiety has sort of stopped with that process?
Yeah, I would say definitely. So like I would say like part of it is actually, in the very beginning, before I first met the alchemist, it was just trying to numb it down, right? But after met with the alchemist, I started went on the journey of digging it deeper into it. And there's a lot of things that's really scary, like I don't really want to face, that kind of triggered me as well. It becomes even darker, during that time. And then I would say, yeah, just like I mentioned earlier, I think depression and anxiety is not here to destroy us, or it's just like a reminder, and then it's a reminder to truly, you have to see it. You can't avoid it anymore. You can't escaping from it. You have to confront it.
Yeah.
And then the more you do, the more you look into it, the more you're realizing is actually, not that scary. And another thing I would say, like, that's kudos to the technology, right? That really, really helped me with my depression and anxiety. Is I started to the genetic test about my, about my mental health issues. And then, but right now, like if you learn about, epigenetics, all these genetics could be, fluid. It's not like you're born with the DNA and it never changes. It could be turned on and off, right? But what I discovered, during that time, at least for me, some DNA, some enzymes, is not really at where they are. Like, so I need to take certain supplements. So I'm lacking certain enzymes that produce serotonin. I'm having too much certain enzymes that break down dopamine, stuff like that. It's not mean that I'm born with it and I'm doomed. It's more so that over the year, because of the environment I grew up with, or the way I'm eating, living, stressing myself out, like those genetics got turned on, right? So after I learned more about that, I starting to more accepting myself as well. And I starting to take the supplements and then more mindful living. That really helped as well, I would say.
That's actually what I was going to zone into next, and it's this discovery journey. I think a lot of people get to that stage where they realize, yes, I'm not living out my true self, or, I'm finding myself in situations around people I don't really resonate with. And then what happens when you actually do get there, but you don't really know the how? And I think that's where most people are stuck. They end up, antidepressants, Netflix, binge eating. So I'd love to really, as much as you can, share what that process looked like for you, apart from going into the epigenetics bit, which I also find really fascinating. Is there any everyday things that you would notice would help, or any tools you've adopted since?
I would say meditation. Yeah, meditation is definitely one thing that helps so much to calm down the mind, and then to also having a clarity. Because the problem, like when we don't know how, is often because we are losing the clarity. Yeah. That's why people go into the forest, so they avoid some distraction, and then they do all kinds of things to try to gain that clarity. But I would say, like, so far, meditation is definitely the one that helps me the most in terms of gaining clarity, and then just talking to myself and journaling. So like I do one thing, it's very interesting, like every morning. Not every morning, like I'm trying to do at least every morning, but during the morning, part of my morning routine is that I use my non-dominant hand. So I usually use my right hand. So this time I'm using my left hand to just, when I wake up, just before I even fully awake yet, I just start writing, whatever, I just start writing. Because with your non-dominant hand, you're less, so you're like kind of like your super self, like in psychology, super ego doesn't really comes in to interfere in you, to judge you. You just use your non-dominant hand to just write out things. Then it kind of, and then you start looking at it, you'll be surprised, what did you just wrote, or what did you just write? And a lot of the answers to your problem actually will come out from there. Because a lot of time is the struggle between our true self, and then our, like super ego, which is, the morals, all the things, that the society put on top of us. We think we should be like this, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. That's honestly fascinating to hear. I'm doing something very similar, just the intentional meditation around kind of going back to your core intention and really why you're doing certain things. That is very powerful. I've also seen that you've done a journey of sort of yoga teaching or learning yoga with Sadhguru, which I truly admire. Would you be able to share your experience with that, and also what led you to do it?
Absolutely. So I first started seeing Sadhguru stuff actually on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was just searching more about spirituality stuff. A lot of questions I had, he had, answers regards those questions. So I just started watching his YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more I watched, the more I'm realizing this guy is, really wise. He has a different perspective that can often gives me like, aha, kind of like feeling, and then he talks about his, inner engineering program, and I just start getting interested into it. I was like, I wanted to test it out. I wanted to try it out, right? So I first started out with his it's like a pre-course. So it's like the seven course in inner engineer online. And I did that after I learned about that, but those are just theories without practices, right? So, and I started doing some kind of the free practices he is offering on YouTube. It's like Rupa Yoga, or like, the alternate nostril breathing, all these type of things. And then it gives me a lot of calm, and also Isha Kriya that pretty helps me, in the beginning as well. Because one thing about, there's like meditation, there's different, meditation is a very big word. There's so many different modalities within the meditation. The meditation I mentioned earlier, even the journaling or even talking to your higher self, these are type of the meditation that helps you or helps me to connect to my inner self or higher self, having more clarity. But as another part, the Sadhguru's meditation really helped me grounding into the earth experiences, because I had the problem of often very easily to get flown into the headspace. It's not hard for me to start having imaginations and then, getting out of the body, but it's really kind of hard for me to a lot of time to ground into the existing like earthly experiences. So Sadhguru's practice really helped me with that, and then I just started becoming more interested, and I learned that he had a 21-day yoga program, that's conducted by one of the teacher, that's trained in the Isha Center in India. And then that was in San Francisco Bay Area as well. So last year, basically, I start doing the Sadhguru stuff. I think last year or earlier last year. So earlier 2021, and then around August or July, I think July 2021, I went to that 21-day program. And then I had to wake up almost 4:35 every day, because we start at 6. It's unimaginable for me before. But then after I did that 21 day, I feel like, God, it's it's a whole completely different world to live in. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I actually completed the Shambhavi Mahamudra, which is the completion of the Inner Engineer program. It is a 21-minute meditation every day. So you started by doing it twice a day. And then right now, I already finished the 40-day mandala a long time ago. So I'm just doing it, one time a day. And I also took my mother, to the Inner Engineer program this year, actually, in their Tennessee residence. And then my mother is practicing it every day as well. It's been super, super helpful for us. At least in terms of grounding your mind and then clear out the chatter. I realizing that my pulse, usually when I wake up, when I had anxiety, it was 120 something, And then even I don't have anxiety, it's pretty high. It's 80 something, 90 something when I wake up. But right now, I check my pulse every morning is 69 or something like that.
How do you check that?
I'll just use Apple Watch.
Yeah, very smart. I've started doing that too. Would you be able to share maybe any limiting beliefs that you had to let go of throughout this process? What were some of the key realizations about yourself that you really were able to acknowledge, accept, and let go of to be able to step into that next, I guess, chapter?
Well, I would say like the first time was the hardest. Like it took me 3 years actually to go from meeting that alchemist to actually go to Mount Shasta. Because during that time, I always have that feeling of I have to have someone go with me, either my mother or my boyfriend at the time, or like a friend, or it just can't be myself, right? It's like so scary. But then in the end, I actually did it myself because it was meant for me. And then I think the biggest thing I need to let go of, there's so much. I basically let go of like everything I know, I let go of the need to know everything. I let go of the need to have everything as I want it to be. And then I'm more accepting to, okay, I know there's a bigger plan, and I'm learning more about go with my instincts and go with my excitement. I think one thing that's the most helpful for me is that I learned to go with my excitement, not with judgments. And then it's really, really hard. And then I would say like we been trained to go with our logics and judgments, try to control everything, make plans, and then plans are still important, of course, but then whenever these bigger things, like plans are helpful when you're in a work environment, like doing a business plan. But then like whenever you're in these life kind of turning points, like you have to be able to trust your inner compass. And I think we kind of lost those things, or we haven't never been trained about those things. That is for me the biggest thing I need to let go of, and then let go of the things that I've been trained for so many years to learn, and then to start almost like allow the universe to take me over. And then that's a lot of fear. It's a leap of faith, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's taken me actually 10 years to do this as well. I mean, from corporate career to sort of realize, I is know who I am. It's a brave step. And like you said, there's the societal pressures, your parents, your surroundings telling you, what are you doing? You're crazy. And now we're dealing with recession, very uncertain times. Like it's probably, logically the worst time to be doing certain things, but also the most important time to really align, because I experienced the same thing, anxiety, panic attacks. And I was just trying to understand, where does it come from? I don't necessarily lead this most stressful life, but you're right. It's going back to authenticity and really looking inwards. But yeah, it's great to hear that journey from you. I feel like it was quite similar, although I wish I met an alchemist because that sounds really awesome. You need to tell me the details. For end of the year, most people do the self-reflection. They look at maybe biggest challenge, things they've learned and want to bring forward for next year and maybe achieve. I want to know what your process looks like, since you've really done a lot of self-work, and I would imagine it's slightly different to a regular person.
Yeah, I would say this year has been a very big year for me because I started, my own company. I started Starseed, and really trying to manifesting the vision I received into the world in a more tangible way, right? And then there's a lot of up and downs this year, obviously, right? Like if we look at the economy, and I think the biggest reflection or the biggest learning takeaway I have within this year is I learned that like good things take time, and then you need to have patience. All the quick things, it might happen like that, but it also could just go like that. So like there's no shortcut as well. And then the most important is like we're in this for a long game. Whether you're building in the blockchain space or you're building yourself for spiritual reasons, or you're doing anything that's really trying to make impact either on your own life or the world, it's a long game. It's like there's no shortcut. And then the most important is actually to take care of ourselves. I think there's like two slangs in Chinese, old like vocabulary or proverbs I would love to, share maybe. One is from Confucianism, 孔子. It's called the process, or the order of your building yourself is basically you first starting by aligning your mind. So you first to have have to have a positive mindset. So you have to align your mindset into the positive vibration, positive state. And then you starting to work on yourself. That includes your eating, exercising, sleeping, all these things. You have to take care of that, because a lot of entrepreneurs, I too, when I start doing these, I ignored all these things. I was like, I need to do things. Like, I don't have time to take care of my body. But then when you don't have time to take care of your body, your performance and then your mental performance, everything goes down the slope. And then so it's like the order has to be there. So you have to first align your mind, and then you build your own self. And then from there, you have to build your intimacy relationships. Have those stable, whether it's your relationship with your parents, with your kid, with your spouse. Those relationships are going to be the cornerstone to support you to the next level. And then from there, you can then, like in the Chinese old verb is like, you can then like become like a leader of a country. But then right now we basically become leader of our own company, right? So, and then after that, after you can manage your country or your company well, then you can really start making impact to the world. So that is the order. And then I feel like that really gave me a lot of stability and groundedness, because in the beginning, I was just trying to jump to the final step. I wanted to change the world, There's a step to it. And then it's very crucial that we go through the step in the right order. Otherwise, it could fall through. And then another thing that's very, very important to me is the saying that don't forget where you come from. Don't forget your initial why. So the first proverb in Chinese is said like 正念修心齐家治国平天下. That is the 5 order. Right. The second one in Chinese is called 勿忘初心方得始终. So it's like, it means that don't forget your initial why, so you can have a completion in the end. A lot of people lose their initial why on the path, get distracted, get pulled over, and they never get where they initially wanted to get to. So like, always remember the why it started.
What a conversation, Cynthia. Honestly, this was one of my favorites this year, I think. So thank you for sharing your journey. I will definitely reach out to you for some of these things you've mentioned for your spiritual journey. I'd love to try some of these things out. But thank you so much. And I wish you happy holidays. And just keep going. You're doing incredible work. And I'm very excited to see what Starseed achieves in next year. So thank you.
Kara, thank you so much for having me. Yes.
Bye.